Hey everybody, welcome back. Glad you're here. I have so much to share today, and so I'm just gonna jump headfirst into the deep. One day I was driving home from work when I had finally hit my breaking point, and I'm driving home and I'm thinking to myself, I've lost everything. I gave everything up, and it was my own doing. I had a husband and two children. I owned my own home. And here I am, living with my girlfriend. And before that, I was living with my mother. I have nothing to call my own. At that point, I had my car. It still wasn't even paid off. I had nothing. My children, my children were around, but they never lived with me from the divorce and afterward. Um, Partly because I didn't have a place of my own, and I couldn't afford a decent place of my own. I preferred to live with those that actually had a decent place for me to live, so that's what I chose. But here I am driving, and I break. I just break, and I begin to cry, tears just streaming down my face. And that was the day that I said, God or Jesus, I don't remember which one I said, I know I don't deserve it, but if you're willing to take me back, I need you. I have nothing left. It's all gone. And I need you. It was a very desperate, broken place. And I didn't even really know what I was saying, what it all meant at that time. All I knew, I was in a desperate, broken place. And I didn't know where else to turn. I had turned to New Age, and would listen to New Age teachers, and I tried to like do the things that they taught me, but it couldn't undo the damage I'd already done. Um, Nor was it obviously fixing the brokenness within me. So, what led me to that place? I think that's what I'd like to share here today. Funny enough, I grew up in a Christian home from the age of 5 when my mom gave her life to God. However, a lot of spiritual happenings began to go on in my life. Um, a lot of darkness. And for most of my life, I couldn't explain why at all. Like, I was just an innocent child. What would cause me to see the things I saw, to know the things I knew, and there really was never any explanation for it in the natural. Um, And then, so my dad was in the military. So between the ages of 4 and 6, I'd say, was a pretty dark window in my life. Maybe it was between the ages of 5 and 7, but either way, I was small, and one night, I remember specifically one night, I was angry. I was very angry. And something told me to get down on my face on the floor and to curse God and worship Satan. And I did. As this very small child, again, maybe 6 years old, I did that in my bedroom on the floor. After I was put to bed that evening, I got down on the floor and I cursed God and I began to worship Satan. And I also used to have a recurring nightmare during that same time frame where I would have the same recurring nightmare over and over again. And it was this dream of men coming to the door in search of my mother, who was naked in the bathtub. And I just knew I had to protect her. And so I answer the door, and then I decide I have to get them away from her. So I take off running out the door and into this field so that they will chase me. And they do, in the dream, chase me. And that's where the dream would end every time. I guess that meant I was successful. I had succeeded in what I needed to do, and the dream would end. But I would dream that dream over and over again for, I don't know if it was months or years, to be honest with you. Then my family moved to Germany. And in Germany, all of that stopped. All of it stopped. And I believe now it had to do with spirits and territory that spirits were reigning and ruling in. And so when we left that territory, all that was going on ceased completely. So Germany was a good experience. So then we moved here where I live now, and I was 11 when we moved here. And I don't think it didn't start immediately. It actually took several years until I hit my teenage years. And once I hit my teenage years, I think around the age of 15 is when it started. Yes, because I actually had a boyfriend at 15 who assaulted me and my father's home while I was home alone. And he came over while my parents were gone grocery shopping. And I sat out on the front porch with him. And this was a young man who had been my boyfriend, but then broke up with me. And he broke up with me for one of my friends. Well, word got around that she was kind of a bully to him. So he broke up with her and wanted to get back with me, is the gist of that story. And I said no. On the front porch of my parents' home at 15 years old, I said to him, no. Like, you broke up with me because you thought you wanted to be with her. And so, like, that was your decision. He did not like that answer. He proceeded to rip the earring out of my ear. As a 15-year-old girl, I used to wear like hoop earrings. And he reached over and put his finger and just snatched it right out of my ear. And from there proceeded to try. I used to wear a lot of rings on my fingers as a young girl. Proceeded to try and pull all the rings off of my fingers. And I got up and I was running away from him down the driveway when he tackled me and proceeded to try and bring my arms behind my back like this, like a police officer would do to a criminal. And I was fighting him and he was grabbing my arms. It was kind of a battle. And then somehow I got away from him and I ran into the house and locked the door. I don't know how I got away from him. I don't remember if I struck him somehow or what happened, but I run into the house, I lock the door, and, I actually called a girlfriend, which reflects how well I knew how to handle a situation like that. I didn't call anyone I really should have called. I called my girlfriend and started telling her what was going on. Well, in the meantime, he was standing at the back door and, like in some creepy horror film, he was saying, just come out here. I won't hurt you. Well, I already knew that was a load of crap because he'd already tried to hurt me. He was already he was assaulting me. But the way he said it was just like out of some creepy horror film. And at that point, I'm telling my girlfriend, and I think she can kind of hear him, and she's like, you should call the police. And I was like, I don't know, like, I didn't want to call 911, I guess. And probably part of my problem was I'm a 15-year-old girl. I probably have been told already by my parents not to have, I'm not to have anyone over while they're gone, especially no boy. And here I am entertaining my boyfriend. And granted, I didn't bring him in the house, so that's good, because Lord knows what would have happened if I would have brought him in the house and really disobeyed my parents. But I had the common sense just to sit out in the front yard with him. But that's probably part of the reason why I didn't call my parents and I didn't want to call the cops, because in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I will get in trouble. So the next thing I know, he is at the front of our house, and we had a huge front window. It was, the living room window next to the front door, and I hear this weird squeaking noise on the front window. And so I pulled the curtain back, and he had spit all over the front window, and with his finger was drawing in his spit all over the front window. I don't even know what. I don't know if he was like writing words or what the heck he was doing. And I was like, that's disgusting. At that point, I think I had probably said, like, you need to leave or I'm calling the cops. Well, then he disappeared, which really really freaked me out because it got quiet and I didn't know where he went. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, we had basement windows and things, and I was like, I was starting to get pretty freaked out. Like, is he actually leaving, or what is he doing now? And then all of a sudden, I start hearing this banging, bang, bang, bang. And I'm like, what the heck? He's trying to beat down the back door. And so I go back around into the kitchen, and he's banging. Like, my little brothers played baseball back then. He had taken one of my brother's baseball bats and was beating the back door with my brother's baseball bat. I don't know if he thought he was going to beat that door down or if he was just out of his mind. And just wanting to be out of control. So then when the banging stopped, then I was really like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I don't know where he is. So I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, and now don't judge me again. I was a 15-year-old, extremely naive girl, but I just didn't feel like I knew what to do. And so I grabbed a kitchen knife, a big old kitchen knife from the kitchen, and I went to the front door, and we had a screen door, and the screen door was locked. But I opened the front door with the knife in my hand, and he was actually standing right there. And I showed him the knife, and I said, you need to leave. I probably suggested that I would use that on him. That, as far as I'm aware of, is when he went ahead and left. I think he must have taken me seriously. So that evening, my mother calls me and she asks me to sit down and says that the neighbor lady informed her that I had a boy over while they were gone. And I'm pretty sure I quit breathing. Again, this shows like some level of sadness here that I was still not even gonna tell that any of this had happened. But it was gonna come out eventually, and you're about to hear why. So I said to her, he came over, but he wasn't invited. I had actually told him not to come over here, and he came anyways. And I proceeded to tell her everything that happened. And I pulled up the sleeves of my shirt and showed her my arms. And all these hours later, my arms were still swollen. They were extremely swollen and red. And this was several hours later. And so she told my father all that I told her, and he started investigating the premises, and he found all the dents in the back door where he had been beating the door with a bat, and he found all the spit on the window, just as I had said. And bravo to my father, but he actually went to this young man's house and spoke to his father and told him, if he ever comes near my daughter again, there will be a restraining order. And however, I would say there should have been a restraining order regardless. But gladly, that did the trick, and he never did come near me again. But that night, I went to bed, and I believe this whole encounter is what reopened up gateways and doorways. And I believe trauma is a gateway to demonic activity. So that's why I'm sharing this story. And it's a part of my story. So I'm going to bed that night, and I hear tink, tink, tink on my bedroom window. And my bedroom was in the basement, and we had small windows in that house. It was an old home, so we just had the small windows that were above ground, and I get out of bed and I look out my window, and there is my hoop earring, like dangling on something outside my window that's letting it go tink tink on my window. But don't think for a second that I didn't think it was him, because I did. I thought it was him at my window in the dark. And this started a sequence of fear in me that was intense. And things that I, didn't speak about or tell or reveal, but I started sleeping. My parents did not know this, but I started sleeping with a knife in my bed. And I was so scared that I would fall asleep gripping the knife. And then I ended up in another relationship. And the next relationship was even worse. This fellow was mentally abusive on a scale 1 to 10, he was a 10. I was a ballerina. I was very small, very petite, very fit. And he would tell me, "You're getting fat. You need to lose weight. You better start working out." He actually hid his friends to see me naked. Like, they would come over and I would say, "Okay, like, I need to go change." And didn't know that his friends were hiding in my closet while I was changing. For some reason, he got off on his friends seeing me naked. And at this point, I'm 16. And I've probably forgotten a lot of what actually happened then. Praise the Lord. But the mental abuse was horrible. Ended up finding out that he had several other girlfriends, and sadly at 16, before the abuse got really bad, or before I even knew really what was going on, or I didn't understand the kind of guy he was, because I was incredibly naive. But I lost my virginity to him. And even during that time, his friends were hiding, watching. And I hope this is helping somebody. If there's somebody out there who has a teenage daughter, or I don't know, I hope this is helping somebody, because this is a lot for me to be sharing and telling. And I'm going to try and fast forward through this kind of quickly so that I'm not here for 2 hours, because it could definitely turn into a 2 hour thing. And I might have to like make more videos just to keep it going, but we'll try and keep them semi short. So this young man did such a number on me, so bad, that by the end of that relationship, I tried to commit suicide. When he broke up with me, obviously I had incredibly low self-esteem. And he broke up with me and I couldn't handle it. And I tried to commit suicide. And, well, if I back up slightly, I was trying to make my way through that breakup when one of his friends befriended me. And he was genuinely being a good friend to me. Just someone who was just there to say, you know what he did to you wasn't right and it shouldn't have happened. Anyways, well, this friend had an ex-girlfriend who did not like that we were hanging out. And one day he and I were walking down the street. I think he was probably walking me home. And she saw us. She was driving past in her car, or in a car, probably, I don't know if it was her car or her parents' car, it doesn't matter. She was driving by in a car and she saw us. And this girl proceeded to turn her car around and chase me, trying to run me over with her car. Chasing me in her car up and down the streets as I ran through people's yards, jumping their fences, trying to get away from her, trying to save my own life, which is interesting because when I finally made it home, I was in such a bad place mentally that I immediately went into the medicine cabinet and I started to swallow many, many pills. My parents didn't have guns. Yeah, I wouldn't have known any other way to attempt to kill myself. And I thought, this will just make me fall asleep and I just won't wake up. And so, I don't know how long went by, several hours. I was still not asleep or dead when the boy who I had been walking with, who knew this happened, called me and we were talking. And I said to him, you know what? I'm going to tell you something just because I think at least one person should know. And I told him that I took a whole lot of pills. And he proceeded to freak out, hang up on me, and he called 911. So the emergency crews were suddenly at the front door, and my mother's calling my name saying, Angel. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, is there something you'd like to tell me? Anyways, she calls me upstairs and I go upstairs and the emergency, I think fire truck showed up first, ambulance showed up, started asking me if I had done the thing that was said that I had done, you know, that called in. And I said yes. I had no idea what the repercussions would be or anything like that, but I said yes. And so they put me in the ambulance and they took me to the emergency room where they proceeded to pump my stomach. And I tell you what, having your stomach pumped, not a pleasant experience. They put a tube down your throat into your stomach, and they have this thing that they use to pump, and it causes your stomach to contract like it would if you were ill and going to vomit. It forces you to vomit. And they have total control. And they continued to force me to vomit for what felt like eternity, until I was begging them to stop. And you can't speak because you have a tube down your throat. But with facial gestures and, maybe to reach out and grab the doctor and the look in my eyes and any kind of moaning or whatever I could do, it was my way to plead for them, like, please stop, no more. And even the nurse practitioner, or maybe he was in school to be a doctor, he was there learning, he said to the doctor who was pumping my stomach, isn't that enough? And the doctor, said to him, do you see this white stuff in there? And I think he had said, there's blood, she's vomiting blood. Don't you think that means it's enough? Even he was feeling merciful for me. Isn't that enough? Can't you stop now? And the doctor who was pumping my stomach said to him, do you see this white stuff still coming up? And he said, yes. And he said, as long as you can still see it coming up, you have to keep going, or it could cause permanent liver damage or kidney failure, or she could have kidney problems the rest of her life. So get through that, they remove the tube, and then they give me charcoal. It's their one final thing they do to make sure that they got it all. And the charcoal ends up making me vomit as well. I'm sorry, I have a timer going off, but I'm not sure I should pause this or anything because I'm afraid it'll stop it. So I'm just going to finish what I'm saying and then I'll deal with that. So I end up being administered to a mental hospital for juveniles who have either attempted suicide or have other serious mental things going on, which was a nightmarish experience as well. And I had, after that, psychiatrist, and they're giving you medication. That's what they want to do. They want to give you medication for depression, and they want to give you medication for this and for that. They think that they're going to fix your problems with medication. But my problems were not medical. My problems were spiritual. My problems were, I would say, yes, physical, because there were things going on in the human realm that definitely could have been better. And that definitely contributed to it. But I know for a fact that it was spiritual. And I'm going to get into that next. And that's going to take us on even more of a journey into how I ended up a married woman with 2 kids in a home of her own, to a woman with nothing left, And finally her breaking point. So I'm going to end here. I'm just going to call it a break point, and then I will get back on and I will make part 2 to this. And I don't know if there's going to have to be part 3 and 4 or whatever, but all right, well, thanks for listening, and I'll be back shortly. Bye.